everybody, this is Deb with Garden Devotions, and today I'm going to teach you how to paint this dragon's eye. Okay, now this is a smaller dragon's eye. I believe it's 30 millimeters across, but I also do bigger dragon's eyes like this one, and this one I believe is 60 millimeters. So these I'm not going to show you because they take a lot longer and they take more of a palette than most people have at this point. So I'm going to show you, like for beginners, how you can take a plain glass cabochon and go to this. And the first step we have to do is we need to paint this on there. Okay, this is the pupil. We need to put that on there in the center. So here we go. Now you want the flat side because it comes domed. Hopefully you can see that. And the doming part is actually what will magnify the picture that we're putting on this side. And what we're doing is we're painting from the front to the back. I know that sounds really weird, but we're painting a level that's going to appear on the front here, and that's where this pupil goes. And then we'll paint different layers, and as they go out, then it will end up, we'll blend them out, and we're going to use a pen for that. Here is the pen I use. It just needs to be something with like the head on it so you can grab hold of it pretty easy. Okay, and like I said, this is where we're gonna go. I'm sorry, I'm just not used to using the camera upside down. That's what I have to do for this. So first of all, we take it on the flat side, and you can get these cabochons in calibrated or non-calibrated. The calibrated will all be the same size. As you notice, these are like the same size. It's, you know, so that's calibrated. If you get non-calibrated, you can go to Dollar Tree and you can get a $1 bag of them that are non-calibrated, but they're harder to work with because the backs aren't smooth, and they, you know, but they're good to practice on because for $1 you can get lots and lots. And also this nail polish that I'm using, it can be any nail polish that you have available, but this is black. It's really important that you have a good solid black, and I got this, I believe, at Dollar Tree for $1. So always nice to have, but you want to have enough in this first thing that it's just about ready to drip, because we want that drop to go right in the center. And you'll get the hang of how much you need, because if you get too much or too little, it really does make it more difficult for you to do. So here we go. What you need to do is, we're kind of on the clock now. We need to drag this down here and then drag it down here. Okay, and then we're going to use our pen to feather it out and make it so, I'm trying to keep it in the camera here, and make it so it's not just this big glob, but it's more the shape of a pupil. And so you try to feather it out. If you wait too long, then it's going to get dry, and this is why I recommend that you start with these smaller ones and then work your way up to the bigger ones, just because the drying factor can cause real problems. But you also need to get to know how long it takes for that specific color to dry, and you're just shaping this, going back over it as much as you need to, pulling the nail polish from the center out so it shapes it the way you want it to be shaped when you get to the end. Now, if you notice, I'm starting to get a little dry here, so it's getting a little thin. Normally I'd do this fast enough, but when I'm talking and trying to keep it in the center, I'm not doing a very good job. If that happens and you run out, because you can see down here that I just have, it's starting to get really thin, I just add a little drop more, but you gotta, again, you want to be careful because you don't want to get too much. You don't want it spreading out too awful far, and it's easier to just feather out if you don't have much. And then you just use your pen lightly, very lightly, to pull a little down here So you can do that and spread it out. Feather it away. Remember, it's nail polish, so if you mess up, you can always use nail polish remover and just wipe it clean and start over. But you want to have it so it looks like a pupil. And there we go. If I mess up too much in the middle, which I'm messing with right now, then I'll end up having it too thin there. But there we go. Okay, so we have this done so far. So far, so good, right? Okay, now I'm going to let this one dry. I like to let these dry for a day or so, so it's really definitely dry. And I have one here that I've already done, and it's dried. So I'm going to work with this one. Remember, we're working on the flat side. Now, what we're going to do is we want to put a little ring around the outside and feather it in with our brushes. We want to make that so that it kind of is a rim. So usually I take the darkest color that I have that I'm going to be working with in this particular palette. And really, you're only limited in these eyes as to the palette you have. Now, the colors that I'm going to be using on this one are kind of the golds and greens and browns, like I did with this one. Okay. There's one, and here's another version of it. Similar. And also the same palette that I used here. So for the big one. So I kind of like to start, I have this brown. Now this is a brown that I got, I think, at Dollar General for a couple bucks. It's kind of hard to find brown, but you can use darker colors. Like if you're doing blue, a blue palette, then use a darker blue on the outside. Of course you can experiment however you want. I mean, it's a piece of art. So do what you want with it. Make it look however you want it to look. Now when I start with this, I'm going to take the brush and I'm going to, I dip it in, and then I'm going to take the brush and wipe off just one side. So the other side is got a little bit more on it. Now this is kind of getting down to the bottom because I've used it enough. But now here's where it gets a little tricky, and this is why you should practice on smaller ones. You want to feather it out. You don't want a big glob there. And by the way, you're going to get your fingers messy. Now, once you start running out, you can turn it just a little bit, and you'll get a little bit more. When it really starts to go bad, it's not enough on there, then you have to dip it in again. Okay, now this is just going to help us define it. Again, it's up to you if you use the dark, whatever color you use on the outside, that's going to be up to you. And all of these colors just really are your preference. But I'm just showing you what I do. And I learned all this from a lady named Yvonne Williams. And she does the big ones. So I'm going to leave a link to her video on how to paint a big dragon eye down at the bottom. She does a really great job. She's a good teacher, and she makes it so that you can follow along with her really well and everything. Okay, now this particular nail polish dries a little faster, and since it's taking me longer to do this, just kind of want to get a little more on there. Okay, since it's taking me a little while to do this, it's drying up. Well, that's not necessarily a problem because we will scrape it off. What we don't use, we're going to be scraping off. And that's what this pin is for. You already saw how we used it on the center. Well, here we're using it mostly for scraping. So we just do very fine little scrapes and turn it, and this is why you will get all kinds of nail polish on your fingers. So if you don't like that, or if you're allergic or anything like that, you may want to wear gloves when you do this project. I just don't like to wear gloves because they never fit me right. So, okay. So you just kind of scrape it around, and depending on how much you have on there, Some colors, and even some colors within the same type, the same brand, will work differently. So you just have to work with them. The one thing I don't recommend is using nail polish with big chunks of glitter in it. If you can get very, very fine glitter, that's good. I like the sparkly ones. I think they make this project work better when you have the sparkle ones. Okay, now remember, since we're doing this from kind of the top to the bottom, that means that whatever we put down here is going to be more visible than some of the others. Now, we've got it here. We've got this is the rim. It's not very big, I know that, but it doesn't have to be. And that's one difference when you do these big ones. It's a lot bigger, so you really need to do more with the palette. And it just requires a little different skill set when you're doing that. With these smaller ones, like I said, they're a great place to practice. Now, I have a series of these, a set of these nail polish, and it's, I don't know if it's going to come out. It's kind of hard to see with all the things. And it's called Kleancolor, and clean is spelled with a K, nail lacquer. It comes in a set of 12. 10 of them work really well for painting dragon's eyes. Well, actually, they all work really well for painting dragon's eyes, but if you're going to bake them in polymer clay, which is how I usually do them, then yeah, you're probably not going to want to do that. Now, I've done the same thing. If you can see, I did, one side has a lot on it and the other side doesn't. I'm using the side that doesn't have much on it, because what I'm going to do is the same basic thing where I'm putting it very, very lightly. And this is probably the trickiest part, learning how to do it lightly so you don't get big globs and you don't get edges like I just did right there. But we'll fix that. I'll show you how to fix it. Sometimes it happens. I mean, it's just the luck of where it comes. Now, if you get a really big glob on one side, you can do this. Kind of tap along here a little bit to get some of that on there, and then go from there. It's a little easier sometimes to do that. Does this have to be perfect? No. That's kind of a nice thing about it. Remember, this is a piece of art. You're creating a painting of sorts. So each one's individual. You'll never be able to do two exactly alike. Even with the pupils, if you're doing like craft items, it's really hard to do two that have exactly the same pupil. Okay, now I have to take my glasses off. This sounds really weird, but I see better with my glasses off when I'm doing detailed work. Again, we do the same thing. Now notice that I'm scratching from the outside in. And what that does is it brings in some kind of, a little bit of the material, some of that nail polish color. It brings it in toward the center. And of course, if you don't have a pen, you can use pretty much any tool. If you've got another tool that you use. Yvonne doesn't use a pen, but I'm cheap and I don't have a lot of tools like she does. So I use a pen. This is like a pen for my amigurumi is where it came from. So I actually like the shorter ones because this is a little longer. I feel like I have more control with the shorter ones, but I couldn't find one. And my brother is going to be going to a gun show soon, in very short order. And he always takes a bunch of these with him and sells them for me. So I can't do very many in one day because of my chronic fatigue syndrome, but I can paint a lot of them, but doing the rest of it, you know, with the clay and everything, it takes a lot out of me. So I can usually do about 5 or 6 of those in a day. I can do about 10 to 15 of these a day. But the smell starts getting to you, so make sure it's well ventilated where you're working with this. Okay, so this was my darkest color. This was the metallic orange, and they have like little numbers on them here. I don't know if that's going to come out because I don't have my glasses on. So this is number 160 metallic orange. This one is the darkest of the ones I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to use this one right here. Okay, and this is a metallic mango. This is probably one of my favorite colors. I like the browns and the golds and all of that. And this one's going to look, this eye is actually going to look a little different from the one that I showed you at the beginning because I didn't put in the original coat, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, okay? But we do the same thing. We're just feathering it around, all around the edge. And if you notice, it's taking more and more polish to be able to do this because even though you've scraped them off, you still, you know, it just takes more because you're filling in some of those lines and you're going a little further in each time. So we want to do that. We want to kind of pull it in a little further. Now, it's not really bad if you happen to get a big glob on there. Don't panic. You can scrape it off. You know, that's what the pin is for. Scraping it, scratching it. It's kind of like a scratch art in some ways. And sometimes you're going to feel like you put more on than you scrape off more than you put on, but that happens too. Now, if some of your globs are looking a little boxy, which means they look too, yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but right here, there's like this big, it looks like square almost. Well, I don't want it to looking like that. I want it to look more natural. So you just kind of do this, and it takes it out. And that's how you get rid of globs. If it's really globby, which can happen sometimes, just maybe go through it a couple times and then wipe off. Like some of this is a little globbier than other places. As you go, you're going to build up a lot more of this. And the more you build up, the harder it's going to be. And the more the next layer is going to require, the more nail polish it'll need. Because you have to fill in all those scratches, those crevices that you're creating. And this is what you do. You just scratch, scratch, scratch. Now, it's up to you whether you start in the middle and go out, or you start on the outside and go in. I kind of do both, because this is the last one I'm going to do from the outside in. Okay, did I get them all? A little bit more here. Now you can pick it up and look at it if you want to do that. You can do that. So pick it up, oops, and then you drop it like that. And then if it's not very dry, like this is drying a little bit, so it's not so bad. But if it's not dry, that can be a real tragedy and you will cry, especially if you've already tried to get the whole thing done and you're very close to being done and then you drop it. So although I'm tempted, I don't do that very much. Now this one, like I said, is going to look a little different than those because those are going to be a little more green. Now I've got two colors left that I'm going to be working with. I have a gold and a green. Okay, I'm going to put the green in at this point. This green is metallic green, and this is one of my favorites too. I really like how this green works. I will tell you that green nail polish is very difficult to get. It's not one of those popular colors. And unfortunately, I think the Dragon Eyes use less popular colors. So now, I told you I wasn't going to do it from the outside, but I am on this one. I forgot that I had 2 more colors to go. So this one's going to have to be fairly thick. But part of it is I know this is more of a translucent one. It's a little, it's easier to see through, kind of. So I don't mind putting a little bit more on. But because I want one of the main colors that in this particular Dragon Eye to pop, I want it to be, I want the green to be like I want it to be green eye. But it's not going to be quite as green as the ones I showed you. And I'll tell you why later on when I get this one done. Okay, because that's another technique that I use that I'll show you real quick. Okay. Okay, now I've got a lot more on here than I normally put on for the outside ones. I don't want to put the outside ones, you know, I want those to be less, but I'm starting to get on the inside and I needed to have that. Now here's where I'm going to start going out, and I am going to go off camera. Okay, I'm going to go out from the pupil. Now you've got to be really careful because you can kind of see the pupil. So be careful because you don't want to get into that black of the pupil. You just want to scrape off some lines here. Now what those lines do is they allow the next color you put on to show through. So it helps to blend the colors. It helps to, and I always make them like they're radiating from the pupil, from the inside. Okay? So, there. Okay. So we're getting there. Now we've added the green. So now we've got some green in there. And that's what I really wanted to pop. That's why I put it in the center. And then the last color I'm going to do is a metallic yellow. And it's just basically a gold. This one's going to come out from the center. So it just comes out. And at this point, the feathering that I did at the beginning, I don't need to do the feathering anymore. And in fact, you really can't do that so much because of the big scratches in there. I mean, they're not really scratches. Well, there's scratches in the paint, I guess. But you got to fill them to get them in there. And I'm not done yet. I am going to scratch these. And again, I'm going to scratch this from the inside out. I want to make sure I'm trying to do these kind of small and just out from the center. Okay. Turn it, because remember, I don't want to take out parts of the pupil. And if you do, you can put in black and it'll fill it in, but you know, it's better if you don't scratch it. Okay. All right. So at this point, here's what we've got. All right. And the last one I'm going to do is the same brown that I used on the outside. And the reason for that is because I need something darker to go in here. It will give just a little bit of a, you know, a look, a radiating look, to have something dark. And so usually I use black or brown to put on the back of these. And this is a pretty heavy coat because you got to get all those scratches filled in, because you don't want anything, you don't want to have anything looking out at the peeking out without this brown on it. So when I turn it over, I want to see only the colors that I put in. There shouldn't be any gaps. And it gives a nice solid color for the back. Now I do have to tell you, I leave these set out for about 7 days before I set them in the polymer clay, because they take that long to dry. They genuinely do. And this is what it ends up looking like. Now this one, if you notice, it's kind of hard to see, but each one you do is gonna be just unique. I mean, it could have to do with how you put the green on or how you put the different colors on, and it just makes a huge difference. Change the order up, you know, whether you put the brown on the outside or you don't. All of those things make a difference. Now I'm going to show you one more technique that I use to kind of give it more of a green hue or whatever my main color is. And that is after I have the dragon eye, you know, painted, and this is the pupil that I did at the very beginning, so it's not totally dry, but it's dry enough for me to do this. Okay, what I do is I take whatever the color is, like if it's a blue eye or a green eye or red or whatever the main color of the eye is going to be, and I put a light coat. I can also do this, I have like a silver that's really nice and a gold, another gold other than this, but it's another gold, and I'm really putting this on a little heavier than I want, but I'm trying to get it on there quickly. This will probably dry by the time you get it painted, just because it takes a while. But the reason I put that on there is because once you do that, that gives a base coat to the eye, and if I do silver, it will make sure that the eye has predominantly silver in it. And then you just scratch it. And you can scratch it from inside out or outside in. I kind of like to do this one from the inside out. But you know, it's up to you. A lot of this, it's art. So you do what, you know, works for you. And if the pin doesn't work for you, then find some other tool that you've got that will. And that's just what you do. Now the scratching on this, you really do want to try to get most of it off. So you want your scratches to be very fine, very set. There it appears that I got a little bit of the, I'm getting some gunk on there. I think I got some of the black, which happens. And it's really, in the long run, even if you do that and you get a little bit of black out there, it's just not going to make a difference. It'll look like specks, you know, in the iris of the eye, which is okay. And if you need to, you can go over it again. This time it'll be a lot drier. And if I did it right, if I would have done it a little less quickly, I probably would have had it drier in the first place, because I like to put a very thin coat on when I do this. But really be careful on the ends, because of where that's a little harder to see. I can see where I've not gotten it off real well. Okay, but then when you get it like that, it has a basic greenness to it. But now when I put the other colors on, it'll pop out more green than anything else, just because I put that layer down of green first. And you can do that, like I said, I do it with silver sometimes, I do it with gold sometimes, I do it with blues or whatever color I want the eye to be more, have more depth with. And especially with this green, it is a little more translucent, so it's really good to do this with something that's translucent, which means you can see through it a little easier. Not transparent, because that means, you know, you can totally see through it, but you just need to have something that's easier to see through it. It lets the light through, and so it's going to let the other colors shine through a little bit more. But it's going to give a green cast to all the colors then when I do this. Okay? So that's what I've got for you on this one. I wanted to show you all those, and the reason I'm not laying these down more is because they're wet. They're still wet. Whoops. I mean, they can go down. It's just they'll stick if I turn them that way, so I usually turn them the other direction. So there we go. And you can see this one's going to end up being greener probably than some of these. And there you have it. Now, if you notice on this one, I had the orange on the outside, and then on this one, I had the brown on the outside. It gives just a little different color. And you can reverse the colors. I mean, you can do them the other direction, and I just got that all over me. That's the one that I just painted, so I'll have to paint a little more brown on that one. It's all up to you. It is your creation. So that's how you paint a dragon's eye. And like I said, I'm not going to do these just because I think Yvonne Williams does them really, really well. She shows you how to do it. And so I'm going to leave the link to hers down below. So She's the one that taught me how to do this. I watched her video and I was amazed. And ever since then, I've been painting dragon eyes. So I'm going to do another video with the setting them into the polymer clay. And who knows, maybe along the line where I'll do one putting it into something, some kind of resin maybe, or something else like wire wrapping. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this series. But I like painting dragon eyes. They're fun and they don't take very long. I can do, this one will take you longer. The big ones, they take a lot longer. I can probably do 5 small ones to the one big one. So that's what I've got for you. I'll leave the links down below to like the nail polish and stuff so you can get those. I really like these colors, and like I said, there are only 2 of them that when you bake them for the polymer clay, they will come out and look not as cool as they go in looking. And unfortunately, it's like a purple and fuchsia. So it's sadly so because they're really cool colors, but these work extremely well. And when you bake them, there's absolutely no change. They look the same when you get them out as when you put them in. So always nice. There we go. That's what we did. Yay! Always nice to have some dragon eyes around. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.